That sounds so nice, I'm not gonna lie. So true. That's exactly what this channel's about. That is one of the things that is so charming to me about Europe. I really love that. I would say that's the mindset, to be honest. Really interesting perspective. What is up? Welcome back. Today I'm reacting to a video titled Europe Ruined America for Me. I'm an American discovering Europe, and this video I think is gonna hit exactly all the buttons that I need it to. What's up? My name's Aaron. I'm an American discovering everything about Europe. The people, the culture, the sports, the music, the food, the history. I want to know it all, and that's exactly what this channel is about. I post videos every single day, so make sure you hit like and subscribe. You're gonna see another one just like this in the future. The things he's gonna talk about, I imagine, are related to food, maybe transportation, and the quality of life. Europe, from my perspective as an American, is just known for having the best quality of life. But now, let's see what he has to say.
I didn't care much for pineapple when I was a kid. I thought it was bland in the grand scheme of fruits. But then I had a pineapple in Costa Rica where they actually grow it, and my lord, nothing is better. Now the canned stuff you see lopped onto a hotel breakfast buffet practically makes me gag. And that, sports fans, is what living in Europe for 10 years did to America for me. Let me explain.
Wow, okay.
If you're new here, hey, thanks for being here. Swell of ya. My name is Joe Bauer, an American immigrant who's been living in Europe for the past decade and wandering around the world even longer, trying to close the gap between the story we're told and what's actually out there. In this video, I'm going to share how living in Europe has ruined the United States for me.
Let's go. The realization. Here we go. This guy seems like he has a lot of experience. I see in the description that Berlin is tagged. Maybe he lives in Germany. I'm not sure, but let's see. Let's see what he's got to say.
Growing up in the US, particularly the so-called heartland of America, the constant thumping of best country ever, either verbally or subconsciously by our politicians and media, leave you assuming that the sentiment must be true. It's ingrained in you before you can even conceive of life beyond US borders. So that's what I assumed. The US must be the best country because, you know, it just is. The tides go in and out, the earth rotates around the sun, and the Cleveland Browns will find new and unique ways to lose games. It's just another law of the universe. Now, to be fair, you don't know what you don't know. We're not generally taught that many people who live outside of the United States are happy with where they live. The general narrative we get is that everyone wants to come to the US. We saw that presumptuous bravado play out with the latest Greenland nonsense when
So true. I think most Americans think that everyone in the world wants to be in America. They can't imagine someone not wanting to visit. And it's funny because talking with so many Europeans, it seems that Europeans do not really want to go to the US. If they do, they just want to go to the nature side, the national parks, which is stunning and beautiful. But I'm going to encourage you, my European friends. I think if you went to some of the slower places, the true American people that you met. For example, I'm from Georgia. If you went down to the South, I think you would have a nice time. You would have to drive a car all the time, and it would take you a long time to get everywhere, but I think you would meet some nice people and have a nice experience. But it's funny because that's so true. Americans really believe that everyone wants to be there.
When Ted Cruz claimed Greenlanders would say, hell yeah, to becoming American citizens. Except they don't want to become American citizens, which is something I'll dive deeper into my next video covering my recent week traveling around Greenland. So, you know, stay tuned. It wasn't until I started traveling the world, ironically thanks to the privilege of an American passport, that I started to realize both that best country is highly subjective and that other countries inarguably do certain things better. In some cases, much better.
Okay. Here we go.
I remember traveling to Switzerland for the first time about 12 years ago, crisscrossing the country by bike and train.
Wow.
Something you simply cannot do in the US. Or, for the person inevitably getting ready to yell in the comments, Switzerland is the size of a small US state. You can't do it in a small US state either. There's a bit from How I Met Your Mother, one of the few that haven't aged horribly, where glass shatters every time someone realizes something for the first time.
You're always correcting people.
That's absolutely right.
That trip to Switzerland was the first of many glass-shattering moments from Europe that's ruined America for me.
Okay, real quick. I've never been to Switzerland. I want to go. It's obviously a beautiful country with the mountains and the rivers and everything, and obviously iconic cities. But yeah, if you're Swiss, is that the best country in Europe? I wonder what he's going to say. Is he going to compare countries and say, you know, this country's better or that country's better? Or is he just going to go, I guess, across the board, the whole continent of Europe? I wonder if he's going to go very specific to each country, because my European friends, I know you love to correct Americans when they say Europe as a country, not a continent. So I wonder how he's going to approach this.
Moving here and traveling even more has only made it worse. Now, when I lived in Düsseldorf, I could easily and safely cycle to the Netherlands, take regional trains to villages in the countryside, ride a high-speed train to France or Belgium, a night train to Vienna, or transfer in Munich to slip south to Austria or Italy. Even from Berlin, I can easily get to Denmark, Czechia, Hungary, or within about an hour on the train, Poland. This isn't just great for travel, it's great for flexibility when working remotely. Just last week, I took the train from Copenhagen to Berlin after my week in Greenland because my flight was canceled. In the US, I'd be absolutely screwed. I'd have to rent a car and basically lose a workday driving. But here, I could just hop on the train. It was about an 8.5-hour journey. Basically a workday on the train, which, as a side note, I'm wildly productive on a train. I think I wrapped up.
That sounds so nice, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, driving a car, you could not really do much work. You can listen to a podcast, you can catch up with friends, maybe make some calls that you need to make, but you can't really get much done. And so that's so true. Like, riding on a train to an American sounds like the best thing ever, at least to me, because I feel like I could be so productive, just like he's saying. So I'm glad he said that.
Wrapped up like 3 articles I had due for editors, and it really would have screwed up my week if I lost that time. Not to mention, spending that amount of time in a car would push me to the brink of insanity. After having that kind of ease of connectivity for the past decade, I simply can't look at the US the same way again. Because all I see when I look at a map are the ghosts of train lines that used to exist, and think of the decades of missed opportunities to make things better. Case in point, we're planning a big trip around the western United States to check out some national parks, most likely connecting Las Vegas, Salt Lake City, Boise, and Portland. They're the largest cities in their respective states, each about 4 to 6 hours of driving apart. My European eyes can't help but expect there to be trains connecting these places. Here, I can take a high-speed train from Berlin to Munich, the same distance as Salt Lake City to Boise, in about 4 hours, with Wi-Fi while working. What transit options that do exist in the western region of the US are multiple buses at just about double the driving time. Hardly the stuff of the best country on earth.
I like that mic drop
The US is financially
Okay, cultural mosaic. What is he going to say here?
Speaking, a wealthy country. Now, rather than using $200 billion to fund an illegal war, it could give a tiny fraction of that amount to improving the lives of everyday Americans by, I don't know, as just one example, improving transportation alternatives. But what it can't do is something that's inherent to the very fabric of Europe, and that is hold together a mosaic of different languages, cultures, and histories. One of my absolute favorite things about living in and traveling around Europe is the linguistic and cultural diversity of the continent.
So true. That's exactly what this channel is about, is discovering those differences between people, between cultures, between countries. The US is a melting pot. Every culture, every language is spoken there, and you definitely have groups and minorities of people represented, and cultures represented, but it's just not, let's say, culturally rich. And let's say it that way. That is one of the things that is so charming to me about Europe. I really love that.
When I'm doing those cycling trips from Düsseldorf or the international train trips out of Berlin, I'm diving into a place with a completely different language, culture, and history. That was another glass-shattering moment for me. Just how much I value this kind of accessible diversity. Now, don't get me wrong, the US is home to loads of unique and interesting cultures. The Midwest is different than the Northeast, which is different than the Southeast, and so on. But the degree of those differences is a fraction of what you experience living in Europe. Going from my hometown of Cleveland to, let's say, next door Pennsylvania just isn't as thrilling as going to Poland from Berlin. And it simply never will be. No offense to Pennsylvania, I love Pittsburgh, the Allegheny River, the Allegheny Mountains, it's all beautiful stuff, so please don't attack me with one of those massive Permanente Brothers sandwiches. My love and now expectation for that kind of diversity is 100% Europe's fault, and there's nothing the US can do about that. Unless, and I'm just spitballing here, someone invents a time machine, goes back in time, stops Native American genocide. Those civilizations continue to grow. They allow a reasonable amount of European immigration, but, with limits, of course, because you can't just have them pouring across Cherokee, Navajo, or Choctaw borders taking their jobs. And then you're left with the same kind of cultural mosaic that we have today in Europe, and instead of, dances with wolves, we'd have, I don't know, dances with clogs or something. If only.
Life before work.
In the US, unemployment.
All right, let me just speak on mine real quick. Accounting job. I would get up, I would go to the gym, I would work out until 7. I would shower, and then I would drive to work. My drive was about 35 minutes. I lived in Dallas, Texas, by the way, hence the cowboy hat. I would drive about 35 minutes to work. I would get there at 8. I would be there until 5:30, and then I would typically either go to the library after work because I had to do some extracurriculars, or I would go home straight away. The drive home was the worst part of my day. It was about an hour. I would be sitting in traffic just trying to go to home. So I would get home every day around 6:30, 7. 6:30 would be early, really would be early for me every day. So yeah, I would leave the house at 7:15, 7:30, and I would get home at around the same time in the evening. So before work, you don't have a life really in America unless you just give up a lot of other things. Like for me, I was getting up at 5:30, gym 6 to 7, and that was my morning, but I was really ambitious, let's say it that way. So I would say most people get up, they have a small breakfast or nothing, and then they leave the house because they have to drive pretty far to work, and that's the American morning.
Unemployment is viewed shamefully. It's one of the
Hold on, let's go back.
In the US, unemployment is viewed shamefully. It's one of the sins spelled out on Mel Brooks' third tablet that his Moses dropped. There's little empathy for folks who, for one reason or another, can't find work. Boomers especially are fond of shaking their head, muttering, "Why don't you just get a job?" As if they're just being handed out by the job fairy.
Yeah, get a job. Oh, get a job? Yeah. Just get a job? Why don't I strap on my job helmet and squeeze down into a job cannon and fire off into jobland where jobs grow on jobbies?
In Germany, and I imagine most of the European Union, unemployment is viewed differently. We have higher taxes, yes, but that helps fund the social safety net that gives recently unemployed folks financial breathing room if they lose their job. Or it's not entirely uncommon for someone to voluntarily leave their job just to make some time for themselves, maybe travel, or do something else that doesn't revolve around work.
I would say if you did that in the US, someone would say you just don't want to work. You're a very lazy person. So if you, I don't know, for some reason were burnt out at a job or whatever, you wanted to leave, and you went on Social Security or had some sort of government funding, Americans would 100% just think you're a lazy person who's taking kind of money from them. I would say that's the mindset, to be honest.
All the while collecting some form of unemployment. The American mind couldn't imagine such a thing. I couldn't have imagined it myself until I lived here. But in Germany, unemployment is viewed as a kind of insurance policy that you recoup whenever you need it. It's your money you're taking back. But in the US, a social safety net is the kind of thing for commies and their commie polyamorous thruples. In a country where many people are living paycheck to paycheck, leaving your job for any number of reasons is seen as too risky. So you might find yourself trapped as opposed to feeling free to explore other opportunities or maybe even starting your own business. Glass officially shattered.
They lied. Uh-oh. Here we go.
None of this is to say that Europe is better than the United States. That kind of thinking is entirely subjective, whether you truly believe the United States is the greatest country on earth, or you wouldn't step foot there if someone paid you. But these glass-shattering moments that living in and traveling around Europe has given me has changed how I see the United States as it relates to the rest of the world. It gave me perspective. It showed me that the American way isn't the best way, it's just one way. It also sucks, to be honest, because as an American, you feel like someone lied to you when the glass shatters, and you realize that other places are doing certain things better, or at least more effectively. But because so many of our leaders believe that America is the best country on earth, they refuse to learn from other places. Don't get me wrong, I don't mind a little confident bravado every now and then. It works for some of the best athletes out there, but you gotta back that shit up. Imagine if after Muhammad Ali said he was the greatest, he went out there and got pummeled by a 5th grader with weak bones. Perhaps most frustrating of all, US leadership by and large would seem more likely to just give me a Men in Black brain wipe rather than try and make itself better.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you will, look right here.
The US is the greatest country on earth. Kid Rock is a national icon. Tex-Mex is better than Mexican. So yes, Europe ruined America for me.
Tex-Mex.
Living and traveling around here showed me that the US isn't the best in many respects, certainly in ways I care about. I can't unsee that, and I certainly can't imagine life without it. But Europe isn't the only region dropping life lessons on my lap. In this video, I share 8 places from around the world that completely changed my American worldview.
Wow, really interesting perspective. You know, one thing he talked about a lot here that I've never really thought of was that difference in mindset between going unemployed. I would be curious, my European friends, do you have the mindset that he mentioned here that Europeans do have? I don't know, I guess that's just something that blows my American mind, because I think, yeah, I mean, it's more of it's seen as a very negative thing. If you leave your job and just go on unemployment and get money from the government in America, that's seen as a very negative. It's very frowned upon, let's say it that way. So I'm curious if that's also your perspective as a European, that, you know, sometimes people just need a break and that's okay if they do have that unemployment period. Yeah, so interesting. Really interesting to hear this guy's perspective. It's funny, he talked about the Cleveland Browns, American football team, and of course he's from Cleveland. I knew he was going to say that at some point. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure you hit like and subscribe so you can see another one just like this in the future. If you want to check out my newsletter down below, that's just a detailed, it's a bit of my week each week behind the scenes, so you can check that out down below. Also, you can check out my Patreon. That is a behind the scenes of videos like this and also of my travel and just life. So if you want to get to know me a bit better, you can also check that out. As always, I got to give a shout out to my channel members. Channel members, you mean the world to me. Thank you so much for your support. Seriously, it means so much, really. So thank you, channel members. And I hope all of you have the best day wherever you're watching this and whenever you're watching this. And I hope to see you in the next video. Cheers.